The Crusades, a clash of civilizations or a battle for souls. The Crusades, spanning the late 11th to the late 13th centuries, were both a military confrontation and a profound ideological struggle. Often described as a clash of civilizations, they embodied cultural, political, and religious conflicts between the Christian and Islamic worlds. Simultaneously, they represented a battle for souls, as both sides sought not only territorial dominance but also to affirm their spiritual and religious ideologies. This exploration examines the dual nature of the Crusades, analyzing them as both cultural encounters and deeply religious campaigns. 1. The Crusades as a clash of civilizations. The idea of the Crusades as a clash of civilizations arises from the dramatic encounters between two powerful, distinct cultural and political spheres: medieval Christendom and the Islamic world. Cultural and political dimensions. Christian Europe. The Crusades were driven by a medieval Europe seeking to assert its power, expand its influence, and reclaim sacred spaces. Feudal hierarchies, chivalric ideals, and the authority of the Church shaped the Crusaders' worldview. Islamic world. The Islamic world, by contrast, was a dynamic, multicultural region dominated by powerful empires like the Seljuk Turks, Ayyubids, and later the Mamluks. It boasted advanced science, architecture, and trade networks. Military encounters. The Crusades brought European knights, armed with heavy cavalry tactics and feudal organization, into direct conflict with the highly mobile, disciplined forces of Islamic empires, which relied on archery, cavalry, and superior knowledge of the terrain. Key battles, such as the Battle of Hattin, 1187, and the Siege of Jerusalem, 1099, highlighted the tactical and ideological differences between the two sides. Cultural exchange and borrowing. Despite the hostilities, the Crusades were also moments of significant cultural exchange. Europeans encountered advanced Islamic science, medicine, and philosophy, which later fueled the Renaissance. The Islamic world adopted certain elements of Western fortification techniques, such as concentric castles. 2. The Crusades as a battle for souls. At their core, the Crusades were deeply religious endeavors, driven by the belief in the eternal salvation of souls and the defense of faith. The Christian perspective. Holy War. The Crusades were framed as a divine mission to reclaim Jerusalem, the spiritual heart of Christianity, and to protect Christian pilgrims. The call to crusade was steeped in religious language, portraying the campaigns as acts of faith and penance. Salvation. Crusaders were offered plenary indulgences, promising forgiveness of sins and eternal rewards. This spiritual incentive transformed the Crusades into a path to redemption for many participants. Missionary zeal. The Crusades also sought to spread Christian influence, often converting or subjugating non-Christian populations in the Levant and beyond. The Islamic perspective. Defense of faith. For Muslims, the Crusades were seen as an invasion of their lands and a threat to Islam. The defense of Jerusalem and other holy sites was framed as a jihad, or struggle in the path of God. Religious unity. Leaders like Saladin united fragmented Muslim states under the banner of Islam, emphasizing the sacred duty to repel the Crusaders. Cultural and religious pride. The Islamic world viewed the preservation of its holy sites, such as the Dome of the Rock and Al-Aqsa Mosque, as essential to its spiritual identity. 3. Intersection of civilization and spiritual ideals. The Crusades were not purely a clash of civilizations or a battle for souls, but a fusion of both, with material and spiritual motives intertwined. Religious justifications for political goals. The Church used religious rhetoric to rally support for the Crusades, but the campaigns also served to strengthen papal authority and extend Christendom's political reach. Similarly, Islamic rulers invoked religious duty to consolidate power and legitimacy while resisting external threats. Material and spiritual interdependence. Territorial gains, such as the establishment of the Crusader states, were celebrated as victories for Christendom, but also served as strategic footholds for trade and governance. The defense of Jerusalem and other holy sites was both a practical and a spiritual imperative, as these places symbolized divine authority and cultural heritage for both faiths. 4. Outcomes and legacy. The dual nature of the Crusades left a complex legacy, shaping interfaith relations, cultural exchanges, and the religious identities of both civilizations. Religious and spiritual legacy. The Crusades deepened the divide between Christianity and Islam, fostering centuries of mistrust and conflict. Within Christendom, the Crusades reinforced the concept of holy war, influencing later military campaigns, such as the Reconquista in Spain and the Northern Crusades in the Baltic. Cultural and intellectual impact. The Crusades facilitated the transmission of knowledge, bringing Islamic advancements in science, medicine, and philosophy to Europe. Art, architecture, and literature in both civilizations were enriched by the encounters, blending Eastern and Western motifs. Symbolism in modern narratives. In the modern era, the Crusades are often invoked as symbols of religious conflict or cooperation, reflecting the enduring relevance of their themes. Conclusion. The Crusades cannot be neatly categorized as either a clash of civilizations or a battle for souls. They were both. These campaigns were profoundly shaped by the interplay of cultural, political, and spiritual forces, embodying the aspirations and anxieties of two great medieval civilizations. While they brought destruction and conflict, the Crusades also fostered cultural exchanges and left an indelible mark on the religious and historical landscapes of both the Christian and Islamic worlds. Further exploration of the Crusades. Bridging the dual narratives. The Crusades' dual nature, as a clash of civilizations and a battle for souls, provides an intricate tapestry of conflict, cooperation, and exchange that shaped both medieval and modern worlds. This continuation delves deeper into specific elements, including the ideological underpinnings, key figures, and enduring impacts, to provide a comprehensive understanding of the Crusades' multifaceted legacy. 5. Ideological underpinnings. A shared religious and cultural mission. The Crusades were fueled by religious fervor, yet their execution revealed the underlying complexities of political, economic, and cultural motivations. Christian ideals of holy war. The Crusades were rooted in the medieval Christian understanding of divine providence and warfare. Urban II's call at Clermont, 1095, the Pope's appeal emphasized the dual responsibility to reclaim Jerusalem and defend Christendom, framing the crusade as both a penitential act and a collective spiritual duty. Salvation and suffering. Crusaders believed their hardships and sacrifices paralleled Christ's own suffering, reinforcing their sense of divine mission. Islamic conception of jihad. For Muslims, the Crusades represented an existential threat to Islamic sovereignty and faith. Jihad as resistance. The defense of Jerusalem and other holy sites was portrayed as a sacred struggle, uniting disparate Muslim factions under a shared religious purpose. Saladin's leadership. Saladin embodied the principles of justice and piety in his campaigns, inspiring both contemporaries and later generations to view his resistance as a model of Islamic virtue. 6. Key figures, leaders who defined the Crusades. The Crusades produced iconic leaders whose actions and decisions shaped the course of the conflict and its broader implications. Christian leaders. Richard the Lionheart, 1189 to 1192, renowned for his military prowess and chivalry, Richard led the Third Crusade with notable victories, including the Battle of Arsuf. His pragmatic diplomacy with Saladin, culminating in a truce that allowed Christian pilgrims access to Jerusalem, reflected the coexistence of martial ambition and spiritual goals. Godfrey of Bouillon, First Crusade. As one of the leaders of the First Crusade, Godfrey's capture of Jerusalem and his refusal to be crowned king of the Holy City underscored his piety and commitment to the Crusader ideal. Muslim leaders. Saladin, 1137 to 1193. Saladin's recapture of Jerusalem in 1187, following the decisive Battle of Hattin, marked a turning point in the Crusades. His emphasis on justice and mercy, including his treatment of Christian prisoners, contrasted sharply with the brutality of earlier Crusader campaigns. Nur ad-Din, 1118 to 1174. A precursor to Saladin, Nur ad-Din unified Muslim resistance in Syria and laid the foundation for the eventual expulsion of the Crusaders. 7. Cultural and intellectual exchange. A legacy of the Crusades. Despite the violence and hostility, the Crusades facilitated significant cultural and intellectual exchanges between the Christian and Islamic worlds. Transmission of knowledge. Islamic contributions to Europe. Crusaders returning to Europe brought back advancements in medicine, mathematics, and astronomy, including works by scholars like Avicenna and Al-Khwarizmi. Innovations such as the astrolabe, Arabic numerals, and surgical techniques enriched European intellectual traditions. European influence on the Islamic world. While less pronounced, European innovations in fortification design and certain agricultural practices were adopted by the Islamic world. Artistic and architectural synthesis. Crusader castles, such as Croix de Chevaliers, demonstrated a blend of European and Islamic architectural styles, reflecting mutual influence. The adoption of Islamic decorative motifs, such as arabesques and geometric patterns, enriched European art and design. 8. The Crusades' enduring impact. The Crusades left an indelible mark on both civilizations, shaping interfaith relations, cultural identities, and geopolitical dynamics. Religious and political consequences. Christianity. The Crusades strengthened the papacy's influence in Europe, reinforcing its role as a spiritual and political leader. However, failures like the Fourth Crusade undermined the Church's moral authority, contributing to growing disillusionment and later movements such as the Reformation. Islam. The Crusades galvanized Muslim unity and resistance, leaving a legacy of resilience and pride in Islamic history. The symbolic importance of Jerusalem, already central to Islam, was heightened by its defense during the Crusades. Interfaith relations. The Crusades entrenched religious divisions, fostering mutual distrust and hostility that persisted for centuries. Yet, moments of cooperation and dialogue, such as the truce between Saladin and Richard, revealed the potential for coexistence even amid conflict. Symbolism in modern narratives. In the modern era, the Crusades have been invoked in various contexts. In the West, they are often romanticized as noble quests or criticized as examples of religious intolerance and imperialism. In the Islamic world, they serve as historical symbols of resistance against external aggression, shaping contemporary discourse on sovereignty and identity. 9. Were the Crusades a clash of civilizations or a battle for souls? The dichotomy of the Crusades as either a clash of civilizations or a battle for souls oversimplifies their complexity. They were both and more, a collision of religious ideologies, political ambitions, and cultural identities. A clash of civilizations. The Crusades brought two distinct and powerful civilizations into direct confrontation, each seeking to assert its dominance politically, militarily, and culturally. The campaigns exposed the differences between medieval Christendom and the Islamic world, but also highlighted their shared humanity and capacity for adaptation and learning. A battle for souls.